As a blogger who has been reviewing VR since 2016 and experienced Vision Pro at WWDC, I've been asked by many people, what is the difference between the Vision Pro and other VRs? Will it really replace the iPhone? And is it worth the wait? Vision Pro has a lot of drawbacks and limitations, but also, it will sure change our life profoundly. If we want to understand it thoroughly, we have to talk about what is VR. In fact, VR has been around much longer than cell phones. Human beings have been using technology to pursue their dreams. There are a lot of ancient stories about it. However, books, movies, TVs, and cell phones are all compromises. The goal of human has always been one, to create a virtual reality. And the essence of the method of creating virtual reality is, to put it in a straightforward way, to deceive the senses. The human senses of sight, hearing, and touch, as well as the sensory coordination of the brain, are the accumulation of biological evolution. And to deceive those senses with just a computing device that had been around for decades is like a mission impossible. In July 2012, the Google Developers Conference inserted the live broadcast. Google founder Brin landed with a parachute from 4,000 feet in first-person perspective, and then walked straight into the conference. The live streaming product was a tiny pair of glasses that Brin wore on his head. This is the first time the headset device got popular outside of the tech world. However, there's a new dilemma of the headsets, because not only Google had to solve these technical problems, but also face a privacy issue. No one wants to be around with the people that are potentially shooting them with a camera on their head. The real hope for the VR industry is the legendary John Carmack, who made the world's first 3D game. In 2013, Carmack joined VR startup company Oculus with the dream of playing 3D games in the real world. A year later, Mark Zuckerberg bought the company for $3 billion. The world's fourth largest business giant are now joining the world of VR, and participants and products are endless at the time. Some of you might have this kind of VR box, and from the moment you start using this VR box to vomiting and want to just throw it away in the trash can, this whole process is about 20 minutes long. This feeling of motion sickness is because of the picture delay, failed to deceive the brain and trigger the self-protection mechanism. Carmack suggests that there are two core keys to not getting dizzy: spatial orientation and 20 milliseconds. Imagine in a virtual world you are gazing at the sky. Why is it as soon as you look down you can see your surroundings? How exactly this process realized? VR devices must have accurate spatial location capabilities to monitor how much your eyes have been displayed, deflected by how many degrees, minutes, and seconds, so that the processor can calculate what kind of picture users see reversely, and then notify the display device to render a high-definition picture that meets the field of view and the resolution of your eyes, and then finally send it to the screen to be displayed in front of your eyes. If you want the image to be stable and not flutter, the monitoring accuracy of spatial positioning should be less than 1 millimeter, and if you want that there's no delay, the time of the whole process should not be more than 20 milliseconds. When you blink your eyes, that's 200 milliseconds. 20 milliseconds means that in the second that you look down, the device has cycling from monitoring the position to displaying on the screen at least 50 times. This is impossible for the hardware performance in this era. So after this kind of VR year, the only thing left is customers' disappointment. Over the years, VR had changed a lot of forms to solve spatial localization and latency challenges. Some scan base stations with the help of external laser positioning. Some are connected to the computer video card via a long data cable. Some use positioning chip to integrate the whole thing, but there's no computing power to do a good job of displaying fusion. Some just remove the spatial localization capability and only display the content when you move your head. This is just a monitor in your head, right? In short, there has been no emergence of a product that can regain consumer confidence. NVIDIA's general manager of VR even asserted that the humanity is at least 20 years away from perfect immersion. With the silence of market, meta market capitalization decimated, industry confidence has hit the bottom. Apple Vision Pro was released against this backdrop of timing.
One more thing.
If you don't use VR much, you might find every bit of Vision Pro novel. So what in it is the old thing to the industry, and what are the breakthrough and surprises? Let's start with what disappointed me first. First is definitely this external battery, which I weighted on my hand at the conference. This 10,000 mAh battery is heavy. With less than 2 hours of battery life, you cannot even finish a movie. And this means you have to attach a cord when you're using this device, which can restrict your movement, and it's also not convenient when you're sitting there. And there's a weight, and the fact that it's not elegant to wear due to the weight. You cannot take it out with just one hand. The staff revealed that Vision Pro is about a pound, or 450 grams. The weight is quite similar with other VRs nowadays with the battery inside of it. The third thing is you have to press the digital crown a lot when you want to controlling it. It works like a home button, which is essential but pulls me back from fantasy to reality every time. This sense of deviation just like a bummer to me. These points are just not Apple. Then there are the things that already exist in the industry, but Apple just did it better. Spatial localization. Now the headset do not need an external base station, but only use the built-in camera to obtain the surrounding environment and depth information, combined with the built-in eye mute posture sensoring for localization, ready to use. Vision Pro is accurate at positioning. The display is more stable than the best current slant positioning Oculus Quest 2, but the industry first millimeter level positioning without a base station is still Microsoft HoloLens. Second is that you don't need a controller to operate it. It uses gesture recognition. Compared with the controller, it lacks a vibration feedback and slightly higher response latency, but will be more relaxed and natural, without the burden of carrying and battery anxiety. The enhanced Vision Pro are real-time snapshot, which will handle the occlusion relationship better than others. But Pico and Quest are all sort of capable of handling the gesture, controller, dual control. The first time to do just rely on the gesture is still Microsoft HoloLens. The third is eye tracking and iris optic ID. Vision Pro used 4 cameras and the circle of LED lights to track what position of the screen your eyeball are looking at, and can be identified through the recognition of the iris of your eyes for identity verification. Without fingerprints, without scanning your face, as soon as you open your eyes, it confirms who you are. My first experience with eye tracking felt like magic. Where you look, where it lights up, like it can read my mind. The Vision Pro's tracking is much more precise, and you can even select a letter in a word by looking at it with your eyes. Vision Pro also uses spatial audio, which I first experienced in VR with Microsoft HoloLens. But on Vision Pro, not only can you do sound positioning, but also doesn't change the position of the sound no matter how you shake your head. You can also use visual scanning to model the environment and simulate the final effect of the sound waves reflecting in your room. So, it's not just about the orientation, but also the tone of the sound sounds like it's really happening in the room. Next, Vision Pro's field of view. Currently, no all-in-one VRs have a field of view of 188 degrees, just like human eyes, as low as 90 or as high as 110. I visually estimate the Vision Pro FOV a bit more than 105 degrees, so you can still see the black circle around it. But if you've seen the clarity of the picture created by Vision Pro, you will forgive the FOV as I did. So, let's talk about the first breakthrough and surprises in Vision Pro: the display. This is what Quest 2 looks like. This is HoloLens 2. This is the best all-in-one VR Pico 4 display yet. Here's the Vision Pro that I'm simulating as I remember it. HoloLens opts for a completely different kind of display. Everything is superimposed on the top of reality by holographic projection, which is spatially localized but shows no black. Low brightness to the eye, restricted viewing angle, poorly calculated occlusion relation, and severe rainbow stripes. Steve Jobs once suggested that a cell phone screen with more than 326 pixels per inch can exceed the resolution of the human eye. Translate that the concept into VR, by the center of the human eye, the number of the pixel per degree has to be more than 60, then the human eyes cannot distinguish between virtual and the real. Vision Pro's display is 4K for one eye, about 40 ppd, which is double of the Quest 2. This quantitative change leads to a qualitative change, so you can browse web text and read books in the Vision Pro. This is not the best part of the Vision Pro displays. The best part is the material used is micro OLED. Not LCD with black field white, not mini LED with halo, not OLED with low opening rate and gauze effect, but micro OLED with ultra high brightness contrast ratio, surpassing the pixel density for all current display devices. You can now view high quality HDR in VR. It was manufactured by Stepper, etching circuits of 30 mm pixels onto a wafer, and then cut. Because the yield is too low, Sony only used a small piece for the EVF on the camera. How to describe the value? It's like to put the 2 most expensive 4K TVs and then condense into a small piece of chip and then put it in front of your eye. Are there any drawbacks to such a perfect screen? If you insist, it can't be as transparent as HoloLens and see the real world. That brings us to Vision Pro's second breakthrough and surprise: video see-through. Because the display of the VR is not transparent, we cannot see the outside world, so we need the camera to capture the video then pass through the display. This is the VST that I'm familiar with, or this. And this is the VST of the Vision Pro. It is hard to believe you are watching the video through the Vision Pro. It is high definition and accurate on colors. You can trust the depth information and rely it to grab something. You can even use your real-world phone to reply to messages, although the picture is a bit noisy. Combining the dual eye information with the lighter depth algorithm, Vision Pro can calculate a real world, and no other VRs can achieve that. And this ability is the prerequisite of the combination of the virtual and reality. The third breakthrough and surprise: latency. If you still remember the terms of 20 milliseconds, how much latency can Vision Pro achieve while doing such high precision SLAM localization, as well as video see-through, depth perception, gesture recognition, and eye tracking? After I experienced it, I could not wait to ask the staff how can I manage to achieve 12 milliseconds, and the Apple staff first corrected me, saying that they were not talking about 12 milliseconds, but less than 12 milliseconds. Even your eyes cannot detect the delay. It is because of the R1 chip. So that the 12 cameras, 5 sensors, 6 microphones, and all the information do not need to go through the M2, but directly go into the R1 chip and complete the processing. It seems like we need the chip to break the impossible. The perfect combination between arithmetic and algorithm, this is what really only Apple can do. Could there be a more amazing breakthrough and surprise than this? If you're entering a 3D world for the first time, you will find interaction control is a huge trouble. Whether you use your controllers or use the hand popping in the air. Even with HoloLens, you still need to learn different gestures. There can't be a simpler interaction than tapping down on a two-dimensional screen, except for Vision Pro. It just requires you to stare at where you want to operate and just pinch your finger, like this. You can have this convenient experience is because the super precise eye tracking ability combined with the front and down cameras, and the gesture monitoring ability with a large FOV. The iPhone and iPad prove that the user can live with the shortcoming of a product as long as it have a set of interaction even the kids can get used to. If one day you're finishing using Vision Pro and go back to use your phone or tablet, you may think the same as I do. Why do I need to move my finger or cursor to tap when I'm already staring at it? It is so inconvenient. The next thing I didn't expect it at all. The high cost investment in the $34.99 Vision Pro may not be in the display or the chip, but rather the social experience. In early years, the social challenges of the Google Glass have made VR lovers default to an isolated usage scenario. In order not to make us look weirder to our family and friends, Vision Pro's outer enclosure uses an entire block of glass with extremely complex curved surface that is very difficult to process, as well as an expensive curved screen built in just to display our faces and expressions, and even a whole system for 3D modeling and scanning, generating a virtual electronic version of us. Although it's not so detailed, but it can show our facial expressions and emotions accurately in real time. Its trigger mechanism is also very interesting. When we are fully immersed, we can only vaguely feel the people in the real world as a silhouette. As long as our eyeballs gaze at them for more than a second, it immediately clears up. At this time, the outside world can also see us, including our eyes. It would be more natural if this mechanism can combine with the transparent and noise-cancelling mode of the AirPods. I was expecting Apple to just make their user experience good and that would be enough. But then I realized that only with the eyesight feature, the Vision Pro is not a code machine, but tech product with humanistic care. By now, all these innovations are not considered the core advantage of Vision Pro, and Apple's real advantage is the developer ecosystem. After the meeting, I talked to several developers. They generally reflect that the Vision OS development environment is very familiar, just like SwiftUI, ARKit, and RealityKit. Just need to add a few words of description, two-dimensional window will be three-dimensional. If you use iPhone to shoot an object, it will immediately become a model in 3 dimensions. And the shared place on cell phone is the function of watching with friends in 3 dimensions. It seems like the biggest constraint for developers now is their own imagination. Well, is there anything better than that? Throughout the event, there was a small point that no one else probably cared about that blew me away.
In Apple Vision Pro, where you look stays private.
While we're enjoying the innovation and convenience of technology, many of us overlook the cost. I don't want software vendors to know which woman I was staring at for a few seconds. I don't want advertisers to know what content will make my pupils dilate. Technological advances have peeked into our finer details of our privacy. And behind this is an industry chain worth tens of billions of dollars. Apple cannot guard 100% of our privacy, but Apple reminds each of us to care. Finally, we'll do a Q&A session on Vision Pro. Can the Vision Pro be used outdoors? Vision Pro is designed to be used indoors as well as on airplanes and trains. Slant visual positioning is easy to be interfered by complex outdoor lighting, so Vision Pro is not a replacement for a cell phone until the technology evolves to be safe enough in this area. The Vision Pro screen so close, does it ruin your eyes? Have you noticed this? The closest focusing distance for human eyes is about 6 to 7 centimeters. How is it possible to see the screen so close? The Vision Pro actually uses the latest triple lens pancake solution, which simply means that the light path is folded, equivalent to you looking at the screen about 2 meters away at a normal distance, which is theoretically more eye-friendly. However, you should pay attention to another problem: flickers. In order to reduce the blur of VR screens, they usually insert a pure black screen between 2 frames. So it's still important to pay attention to eye hygiene and not use it for a long time. How does the Vision Pro feel on head? The 450 grams Vision Pro is not light, but I do feel like 300 grams after I put on my head. And the reason is Vision Pro's center of gravity structure. First of all, it can't be used with eyeglasses. You need to get a lens that fits your prescription with Apple's official partner, so that the Vision Pro's body can get closer to your eyes. The most important thing is that the Vision Pro is a curved shape that fits human's face. For this purpose, the interior is surprisingly a V-shaped mainboard, and the cameras are all lined up on the shaped mainboard. This structure is designed to be extremely difficult to produce, and the only explanation is that Apple wants to move back the entire center of gravity of the device. However, for those who have not used VR much may find the sides a bit strange and tight at first, and also a bit pressure on their face for a long period of use. Is Vision Pro really not dizzy anymore? Whether or not you get dizzy depends on whether or not Vision Pro has managed to fool your eyes. First, is have a PPD around 40, not quite 60 at the limit of human eye, which means you can still see some tiny jaggies. Secondly, we can still see some noise when Vision Pro is capturing the real world, and at the very edge, there's still some tiny bit of distortion. Thirdly, although the spatial positioning is indeed accurate, but it cannot avoid some tiny displacement between the device and the head when moving the head rapidly, and resulting picture flutter cannot be solved by the device. So, the Vision Pro is already the least dizzying product on the market, but you still need to get used to it, to a degree a bit like playing an FPS game. What can I do with Vision Pro? It's a 3-dimensional dream maker, so the answer is, dreams are anything. Of course, if you're the first to get your hands on one, beware that the Vision Pro is completely off the generic OpenXR interface, so none of the big VR games that are already out there will run. Instead, I think there are these few apps that are worth experiencing. The first is that your home immediately has a huge screen that is 700 inches. It is bright, clear, and with sound effect. The viewing experience kills IMAX, and it will be better if you are watching 3D movies. Notable among them is a new kind of immersive interaction, which is much more storytelling, engaging, and immersive than a movie. Expect there isn't much of it at first. What's more, you can attend any sports events and concerts in person, hug virtual Lionel Messi, follow someone else's experience, or even suddenly appear in any location on Earth to take in the scenery. Wrong word, not just Earth. Vision Pro is compatible with all iOS and iPadOS apps. That is, you have an iPhone and iPad inside. You can connect physical keyboard and mouse if you think the virtual input is slow. However, I suggest you to observe how 2D apps change to 3D. For example, when you tap play on Keynote, it's not just a full screen, it's a big meeting place. Yoga meditation is not just video and music anymore, it's a stunning, beautiful natural environment. Chatting may not be sending pictures anymore, but directly through a 3D model to others. And with friends, you don't need to FaceTime them to check out whether they're okay, you can just throw a virtual party. A lot of people say that VR lacks a killer app, and I think Vision Pro Spatial Photo is a kind of app that will pay any amount of money for. With a single button, you can record important moments in your life in 3D. Then, you can look back at any time. Some people do not want to put on Vision Pro and take photo in their treasure moment, but I think no matter it's kids, pets, or family, the efforts of taking a spatial photo is about the same efforts of taking a photo on a DSLR. If in the future, Apple take the spatial photo ability and put it on iPhone, this will change the history of photography. Of course, Vision Pro is just a new platform and tool, and what you can do on it will depend on the efforts of many developers in the future. Finally, what should Vision Pro be called? First of all, I think the best term that corresponding to cell phone is headset, but headset doesn't distinguish the difference in principle. We used to call headsets that display purely virtual with spatial localization VR. Call it AR if you can see reality without spatial localization. Call HoloLens, which has spatially localized content overlaid on top of reality, MR. Vision Pro comes out of VR, while mixed reality like MR. Tim Cook himself called it AR. So what to call it is just messed up in English semantics. It's a headache for me when I'm writing, until I realized the name issue was already thought of for us. In the 1990s, when Qian Xuesen wrote a letter to the expert of the 863 program, he talked about a device that would be able to use technology to fool people's vision and senses. It greatly expands the perception of the human brain, and thus brings us into a new world never seen before. A new era of history is about to begin. As for the name, I especially like Spiritland, which has a strong Chinese flavor. I hope there will be more products like Spiritland, and eventually let our dreams come true. If you enjoy our video, please like and subscribe to our channel. See you in the next one.